Hello, Shahd, and hello, Miss Karinna. How are you?
Very well, thank you.
Hi, Faisal.
So both of you can hear us clearly?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's great. So I gave a very brief introduction about both of you, but I think I'll give you each a couple of minutes to give us an introduction about yourselves and how you relate to this topic today.
Sure.
Certainly.
So if you can start with Shahd AlShehail, if I may.
Sure. So good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shahd AlShehail, and I am the co-founder of Abadia, which is an ethical luxury brand that's all about supporting artisans and promoting craftsmanship and creating products that have a beautiful story and their creation and also represent culture and heritage and preserve it. I've been really passionate about the concept of sustainability when it comes to fashion and have dedicated a good amount of my career working to build awareness about fashion supply chains, where things come from, how we connect consumers to the story behind their clothing, and how collectively we can create change in the industry.
Thank you, Shahd. If we can go ahead and start with Karinna Nobbs to give us an introduction about herself and how she relates to today's topic, please.
Certainly, and thanks very much for the opportunity to talk about digital fashion today. I am an academic, a strategist, and a founder. I'm very excitingly just about to launch a new business called The Dematerialized, and this is an organization which I created called Hot Second, which was a concept store which really looked at how could we kind of get people's understanding about what digital fashion actually is, because it's kind of confusing, it's kind of misinterpreted a lot, and also there are some amazing opportunities in when you put digital fashion and sustainability together, but we need a lot more kind of experimentation and research in this area. So that's my kind of flying flag the moment.
Perfect. So I think it's a very good opportunity now to give us a definition from each of you to digital fashion.
Yes, certainly. Do you want me to go first? Is that all right?
Yes,
Go ahead.
I mean, I'm currently kind of defining it as a computer-generated asset that can be kind of manipulated, experienced, and potentially traded in both physical and digital environments. And typically the way that you can experience digital fashion is either via an avatar, via augmented reality, or via kind of a magic mirror type experience. They're typically what we can do like right now.
Shahd, would you like to comment on that, or maybe you have a different definition?
So Karinna is definitely the expert when it comes to the topic of digital fashion, but when I started to research it and learn about it, it really felt like an opportunity, especially during the pandemic when a lot of the brands weren't able to create products. They went to the augmented reality to create fashion shows, and you see it now in being implemented in other ways. Like you see the growth of filters on Instagram and the augmentation of like trying on things, whether it's a lipstick or otherwise. So fashion has the same opportunity when it comes to digitization.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I hope this is very clear to me and everyone in the audience. So I have a question to both of you as well, of course. So the fashion industry has been facing digital transformation. What is driving this transformation? If you can start with Karinna as well.
Yeah, sure. I mean, I guess it's coming from two ways, right? We're seeing it coming from industry in the form of innovations, which are either getting kind of more accessible for brands to invest in, or more innovation as in kind of faster computing power, 5G, for example. And then on the other side, we're also seeing a kind of a hunger for consumers in terms of new opportunities, new ways to kind of engage and experience fashion. And I guess one other thing I'd like to flag up is that I really believe that digital fashion can hold quite a lot of efficiencies for fashion companies in particular in relation to overconsumption and overproduction. So I guess there's a kind of a three-pronged approach there.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think when it comes to waste, it's a very interesting proposition for the industry, because the fashion industry is unfortunately one of the most wasteful industries out there, both in terms of supply chain practices, as in how products are made, how are they manufactured, and the amount of waste in terms of chemicals and otherwise that goes into the environment, but also in terms of like post-production. You see the growth of fast fashion over the past few years and how much that has created this sense of disposability when it comes to fashion, like wear and throw, wear or throw. And that creates a huge waste problem from an environmental perspective. And so there's an opportunity for the digital intervention to really address that issue of waste.
So where does the consumer come into play? Is this transformation caused by the consumer, or does he affect it in any way? Or is it the industry that's moving and the consumer is following?
I mean, I guess in my opinion, I feel like all those parts are happening at the same time, and it's like a similar discussion about where does the responsibility lie in terms of sustainability. Should it be the brands who are leading the consumers? And my gut feel is that yes, but I understand as well as that as a consumer and as a global citizen, I have to play also my part in questioning things, looking where things come from, demanding to brands to let me know who it was that actually made my garments, or if it's in a digital capacity, again, kind of knowing what's happening behind the scenes. That kind of transparency element is becoming much more important for consumers.
So Shahd, if you can give us some insight about consumers in Saudi or the Middle East area, maybe?
I think, first of all, I agree with Karinna. I think there are so many forces at play, and they all have to work together to create change. I'm a big believer in the power of the consumer. I really do think with growth and awareness, people start to demand better practices. And at the end of the day, brands respond to that because they're in the business of making money and they want to be in line with consumer trends. Personally, I remember when we first started to talk about fashion sustainability back when Rana Plaza happened, it was a very foreign concept in the Middle East. But today, I look at a lot of young people in Saudi and otherwise who are really prioritizing sustainability as a way of life. So it's not something that's suddenly just inserted into their fashion choices, but you see it in their food choices, in their habits in terms of recycling and otherwise. And so I do think that there's a growth in consumer, and I think the consumer plays a big role in creating the shift, but the brands have a responsibility as well, and the suppliers have a responsibility as well as government. So I think it all plays together.
So you mentioned financial aspect. How does this affect the transformation? Are you guys making more money or less money now?
Well, I'm not making any money yet. I'll put my hands up to that. And I guess that's why this digital fashion space is so kind of early and exciting. But I think the potential that it has, what we're not seeing within the fashion sector yet is people adopting digital fashion right from the beginning, from anticipation of demands using data all the way through to digital sampling, to using a hologram inside a store or having a digital fashion show and then potentially selling that asset. So we're still kind of like, I can't wait for that to kind of like happen. And I hope to kind of facilitate a few brands kind of journeys within that. You've got maybe some more concrete examples in your businesses.
Shahd is laughing, so I guess you're making money. So tell us about it.
Alhamdulillah, but I think that I'm a big proponent of efficiency, and I think that's where the hope with the digital transformation is that it's not about losing money or gaining money, but becoming more efficient as a system, and therefore becoming more kind to the resources that we're using, right? So these are human resources and environmental resources that we need to keep in consideration because they are finite and we can't keep abusing it the way the industry has been abusing it to date. But I'm like, people hear me speak often and they might think it's really crazy or unconventional that I say this, but as a fashion brand owner, I'm the first person to tell people buy less. Honestly, I really believe as consumers, that's where it all starts. Buy less and buy better. When you decide to buy, invest in pieces that really matter, that have an amazing story, that you're going to wear for a very long time, that hopefully you're going to pass on from one generation to the next, and break that cycle of disposability when it comes to fashion. So I feel very strongly about that. And even though it's not in line of business, but it's really a value that I think we keep to heart at Abadia.
So the consumers do hold a big portion of the responsibility. So everyone here has to start following these two ladies and start abiding with your rules. So let's go to the next question. If we can go to Karinna. Could you please tell us more about the concept of circular economy retail?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I first got introduced into this sector because I'm a very passionate consumer of digital fashion. Here I have a 1950s housewife's dress on. And I see particularly the growth of secondhand, the growth of customization, of repair, etc., as being kind of critical in that circularity journey. And then as I got more enveloped in the digital fashion space, I started looking at how could that get introduced in that area. So for example, the Hot Second concept store that I opened last year, I asked people to donate a physical garment, and in exchange they had a digital experience, which was kind of quite alien and quite new. But I'm really interested in, again, kind of looking at new forms of kind of like currency for people, and also really getting people to think about do I really need this, and what do I need it for? Similar to what you just said about buy good and buy better. We have, a whole new world of things like wardrobe optimization, which is going to be the new kind of like Apple Watch or kind of like Fitbit for optimizing what's the cost per wear of this piece. Or if I'm going to a wedding, is someone else going to be wearing the same garment as me? Or can I share it? Can I loan it out in the kind of sharing economy? So there's so many more opportunities, I think, that are still quite early in this space, but that are definitely being kind of seen.
Shahd, can you comment on the sharing economy concept? Do you think it would work in this culture?
I think there are challenges to it working, which I know most people that speak about this topic within Saudi or within the Arab culture realize that there's somehow a bit of a taboo around taking things that are secondhand or reusing items, or even wearing the same dress more than once. And I think it's really important for us to normalize that, because it's where we started. You think about the generation, not my mom's generation, but my grandma's, like they wore things over and over. There was nothing aib about it. There was nothing taboo about it. It actually was valuable because it was worn more than once. It was valuable because it was worth the repair that was put into it. My favorite pieces that I own are from my aunt's closet, from my grandma's closet, that I've repaired and felt like they have so much more meaning than just a physical appearance, but really a story to them. And I think we need to repair that connection between us and the items that we own and hold. We need to start creating meaning between them, and get out of that cycle of disposability.
I think it's very important to highlight the sentence Shahd just said. In the Arab world, it's not taboo to wear the same dress twice. Because in the Arab culture, maybe in the Saudi culture specifically, if you go to a wedding and you see a girl in a certain dress, if you go 6 months later, it's impossible to see her in the same dress, even if it costs $10,000.
But then going back to the sharing economy, you see, for example, a parallel in the US of how they've dealt with that is something like Rent the Runway, right? Where you rent a dress, you wear it for the event, you then return it back, and you have a new event, you rent another dress, and that dress goes to someone else. And the sharing economy has ways of doing that. But at the end of the day, I do think it's important for us to normalize the fact that clothes are not disposable. Clothes don't have an expiration date. It's just not there, and we've been treating clothes like they have an expiration date, or the fact that they're disposable, which they're not.
I think something, if I may add, one of the things that's interesting during the pandemic in the last few months is that I've seen a lot of light bulb moments from consumers when I observe, particularly on social media, that being more confined in one space has made them reflect a lot more that, oh my goodness, I haven't worn everything in my wardrobe, or I don't need all that stuff. So I think that this is quite an interesting moment in time for consumers.
I think we can relate to Marie Kondo, who likes to maybe donate a percentage of what you own every year. She has a certain methodology to that. Shahd, would you recommend people to maybe sell used fashion products that they don't use often?
Yes, I mean, for sure, so it doesn't go to waste. But I go back to the point that it all starts with how we reshape our idea of consumption when it comes to fashion. So I think the concept of donation and the concept of resale is really an interesting concept, but we have to be careful for it to not be a band-aid solution. So if we continue to consume the same way we consume now, and then just donate it, and we feel better about ourselves because we donated it, then we didn't really solve the issue at hand. So it really starts with lowering consumption and making more thoughtful, meaningful consumption, and then thinking about the life cycle of the item. If you're not going to use it, or if you have no use for it because the sizes changes, or you're completely rehauled your aesthetic, or whatever it is, to find then the next life cycle for that item to continue on through renting, resale, or donation. But it can't exist without that fundamental change of consumption to begin with, if that makes sense.
It does, definitely. Let's jump into another topic here. So it says, how in a world of globalization we keep the value of local production, social and environmental transparency. If you can start with Karinna.
I'm less of a kind of a specialist in this area. I think if we try and think about that from a digital fashion perspective, we're seeing a huge growth of independent fashion designers who are kind of in certain global pockets, which seem to be aligned to education trends, actually. So, for instance, in Amsterdam, there's a really interesting kind of hub of 3D designers in Kiev, and also in Russia as well. And I think they're kind of localized kind of like movements, and it's going to be very interesting to see how that plays out. I guess related to that is the notion of digital craftsmanship or craftspersonship. And indeed in Amsterdam, they have actually created the name hypercraft to kind of like allude to this notion of the value of the creation that goes into account, because sometimes just because it's digital, it's discounted as not being crafty or not having a kind of level of design. So I guess that's my kind of answer to that kind of question in a kind of sideways manner.
Shahd?
Sure. So I think the opportunity here to balance between something like digital fashion and local production and craftsmanship could create some interesting results in the long term. So if you think about the fashion industry today, there is a lot of production, too much items are produced, too many items are produced, and often go to waste because the decision to produce them was not connected to consumer wants or desires, and things that are really experimental that end up like being wasted, etc. So I think that there's an opportunity for digital fashion to bridge that gap between what designers are thinking about, and then what consumers actually like, even before go to production. And then on top of that, for things that are more experimental and like maybe shouldn't be produced in the physical world, but is really interested to be produced in the digital world, can go in that route as well. When you think about it from my perspective, I work with artisans that have learned these techniques from generations before them, and through the techniques that they're working on and the craftsmanship that they create, they are preserving part of history. They are preserving like cultural storytelling and really important information about who they are and their culture and what that represents. So it's compared to digital, it's very slow. It's a very, very, very slow process. It takes time. It's very meticulous. It's not mass-produced. And the balance, I think, between having that fast desirability of testing and trying things through the digital balance with something that's slow and meticulous and like really well made and specialized, so people, again, will have a better connection to it and a more meaningful connection to it, I think is an interesting intersection that's like worth exploring for the industry.
Definitely, and if I can maybe just add something there quickly about if you're able to design something digitally and then so that it's kind of zero inventory or made to order manufacturing, and then that kind of amazing craftsmanship that you just explained happens after the point of purchase, so that again we're not manufacturing pieces which aren't going to be used or loved perhaps. Again, I think there's not enough of that happening yet.
So if you want to give us a piece of advice for the next time we go shopping from each of you, what would that be? I guess
we'll probably have a similar answer. I guess think about what is the need and what is the want before you even leave the house, before you pick up your mobile phone to scroll on social media. I think the counter argument to that is I love fashion and I don't want people to feel necessarily guilty. And that's one of the reasons I started a digital fashion business, because I want to still interact with trends and fashion and creativity, but I don't want to have that kind of the guilt of overconsumption. And I feel that that's something that is, again, an opportunity that digital fashion can have.
Absolutely. I completely agree. And I think the thought process is really where the shift happens. It's not don't buy, it's think about the things that you're buying. How do they fit within your aesthetic? How are you going to wear them? How long are you going to wear them for? And do you really love them and love the story of how they were made as well? Do they fit in with your values? And before you make that purchase. And then when you make it, عليك بالعافية, like don't feel guilty about it.
So what would you tell someone who doesn't care about sustainable fashion?
Give it a chance. I feel that all fashion has the potential to be sustainable because it has a story, it has a background, it has a heritage, even if it is a fast fashion garment. And I guess probably out of everything, that's something that needs to be examined more first of all. And I do understand as well that many people engage with fast fashion because they want to engage with trends at a price point that's available to them. But again, it's about an awareness and a consciousness about what happens kind of behind that. So I don't know, I guess it's back to education perhaps.
Shahd, I think you face this a lot in Saudi or in the GCC area.
It's hard to respond to say, how would I respond to someone who says they don't care about sustainable fashion? Because that's like someone saying, I don't care about human life. I don't care about the earth. I don't care about the environment, which shouldn't be a choice. It should be part of who we are as humans to care for each other and want to make the place that we live in better for everybody. So that's how I feel.
Well, thank you very much. We still do have a couple of minutes, so I think we can take advantage of this time before we get questions from the audience. If you can give us a quick brief, Karinna, about your project, the Dematerialized, in just a couple of minutes.
Yeah, certainly. So very excitingly, it's hoping to be the world's leading platform for virtual goods. So at the moment, the way you purchase virtual goods is typically in a system that only accepts cryptocurrency. Like, for instance, if I wanted to do it, it would be quite difficult. There's a high barrier to entry. Plus, there's hardly any digital fashion assets actually available. So what the Dematerialized hopes to do is make digital fashion more accessible, no matter what your payment kind of options are. And then after that, that you actually have a few different things that you can do with it, so that you can get dressed in it digitally instantly. You can wear it in a game, and you could also potentially sell it or retrade it on a asset marketplace. So it's all very new and exciting, and I can't wait to see what the world thinks of it.
And when is the official launch of the project?
We hope in December. We have our developers frantically developing at the moment to make it very interesting and exciting. So watch this space.
We look forward to it. Shahd, if you can give us a brief about either Just or Abadia.
Sure. So Abadia, as I said in the beginning, is an ethical luxury brand. We're really committed to preserving craftsmanship through working with artisans who create the details of all of our collections. We want to show the world what ethical luxury can look like from this part of the world. We create fashion goods and products and sell them directly to consumer through our platform, and also participate in fashion weeks back when that was a thing.
So what are your thoughts for 2021? Are we going back to normal, or we're still going to be with the current situation?
I don't think there's ever going to be a going back. I think that we're going through an evolution right now, and I'm hoping for the better. Like Karinna said earlier, you've seen people become more aware, more conscious. There's a lot of positive new behavior that came out of the situation, the very difficult situation that we're all going through. But I see a light at the end of the tunnel. I see an evolution. So I don't think we're going to go back to normal, but I hope that the new next is something that's more kind to everyone.
Well, thank you, Shahd and Karinna. If you do have any final comments, we can go through them before going to questions.
I think that was very eloquently said.
Thank you very much. We'll still have 2 minutes, so we can take a couple of questions from the audience if we do have any questions. If we have a mic, please, to the lady in red.
Hi, first of all, I would like to say that was very lovely and very helpful. You guys talked about fast fashion. Fast fashion clashes with digital sustainability. So I want to know if you think it will end soon, or it will continue for a long period of time, because it follows trends nowadays, and it's cheaper, and trends change a lot. So I just want to know your opinion about that. Thank you.
Do you want to go? Do you want me?
You go first, because I've done the first ones and the other ones.
Sure. So yeah, unfortunately, fast fashion plays a huge role in the current problems that the fashion industry face. So everything from the environmental issues that are currently there, and more importantly, the human rights abuses and the terrible working conditions that most of these people that create the fast fashion around the world live in. I think that with the growth in awareness, or at least what I've seen as well, in the growth of awareness from the consumer side, as well as in the accessibility of better technology and more governance in certain countries, you're seeing fast fashion trying to make a change, a positive move. I think when you look at some of these brands launching conscious collections or sustainable collections, it's really a response to the market. But for me personally, I don't think fast fashion can ever be sustainable, because I think the business model in itself is broken. The whole idea of creating too much at a very low price and hooking the consumer in this rat race of disposability of wear and throw is really problematic. So I'm hoping to see it being phased out, and for these companies to think about interesting and creative ways to pivot, because there are ways for them to pivot, and especially with their level of power and access to resources, they can do it. But that's my opinion about fast fashion.
Karinna, we have 60 seconds for your comment on that question as well, if possible.
Boom. I mean, I guess I agree as well, and I'd like to jump in on that point on the end, that digital fashion, I think, could be a really potentially interesting revenue stream for some of those brands which do have not very good working practices, all the negative things that you suggested. On the flip side, I am also aware that all this, even if it is digital fashion, it's still encouraging consumption kind of conspicuously, so that there is still a bit of a question mark. And although I am here to fly the flag for digital fashion, we still need more people to experiment with it to really understand the behavioral implications, as well as also the kind of more planet-based implications, if that makes sense. So I'm trying to be objective.
It makes perfect sense. We have one more second. Thank you very much, Karinna. Thank you, Shahd, for this amazing talk. And I hope we had time for more questions, but unfortunately, we are on a time clock. Thank you very much. See you soon.
Thank you, Faisal. Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Pleasure to
Huge
be with you.
thanks.
Bye.